Shut the door. Shut the door. Yes. I'll explain that one in Patreon, Chris. Hey, everybody, got a story for you. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Paid Search Podcast, or as I call it now, the polarizing Paid Search Podcast. Chris, Cynthia's been editing the videos, all that kind of stuff. She's been looking at the feedback on display, and she's like, man, some people do not care about display at all. And then some people absolutely love it, like they're a rodeo clown and they're at the rodeo. So I found that display has been kind of polarizing. People are like, oh, it doesn't work, I never do it. Or people are like, whoa, works better than search if you put the time at it. Can't beat the volume, can't beat the cost. Here's all the things I do to make it work. So have you found that, Chris?
Yeah, I feel like that's part of the reason I'm here. I need this show just as much as everyone else because most of the time my opinions are chiseled into rock, and I don't change them. And then I come on here and I'm like, okay, I should give X a chance. You know, I should do this or this, and that's why we're here. That's the Paid Search Podcast. That's why we're here, because otherwise you're going to keep doing the same thing. And guaranteed, you've run a campaign long enough, Jason, you know, you keep doing the same thing forever, it will eventually start to trend down. It won't go up without making some adjustments, some changes. So that's why we're here. That's why you're listening to the Paid Search Podcast, and we appreciate your patronage. So let's get into a great tool that you can use for your display campaigns. This tool, opteo.com/PSP, opteo.com/PSP. That is the special URL you can use to get an additional 6-week, or I should say an additional 2-week, a 6-week in total trial for this amazing tool that you can use to optimize what we're talking about today, display campaigns. These are great tools. Well, this is a great tool that can send you suggestions, recommendations. It can send you email alerts in your email. You know, you're looking at your campaign, you're thinking, what do I do now? opteo.com/PSP. It will give you the hints that you need to make improvements.
Thank you, Chris. And I want to thank everybody for sharing the show with their colleagues, sharing the show with their friends, and very importantly, leaving us a rating and or review on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast platforms out there. When you do that, it sends a signal to the algorithms that we're doing something interesting here, and they share it with more people, and we're able to grow the show. So we like to read those reviews. And this week, Chris, we are back to the United States of America and back to 5-star reviews, and it feels right.
All right.
We are up to 199 ratings in Apple Podcasts.
Wow. I remember when we celebrated 50. You remember that?
I remember when you posted the first one as yourself.
Let's not
I forgot to change the name. And I was like, I didn't know you very well. And I was like, oh, this is the guy who does that? Okay, good to know.
Yeah, I know. I really wanted the number to start going up, you know?
I feel you, man. I feel you. Yeah, I feel you. So, but I do remember when we got our first review, it was someone with, he put the name of his business, and it was like some kind of fishing company or Minnesota or something. And we were like,
yeah.
Well, how did he find our show? Like, was he eavesdropping on us? Did he hack into our conversation? And then we're like, oh yeah, we did put it out there for people to find it. But it's like really quickly, someone found the show on Apple Podcasts, and that was cool. Yeah. So yeah, this week's 5-star review from Matthew, 5 stars, one of the best podcasts out there. People who have no interest in Google marketing listen to this podcast because, well, I don't know why, but they do. I've heard by the host.
I don't know why. It was one of the best. Doesn't know why they listen, but the host tells
told
them
me to say that.
They love it. Nice. Obviously, a longtime listener and fan. Thank you, Matthew. All right,
Chris. Well, hey, make a sound with your mouth. Oh, what do you got?
We got some news first. Okay, let's do the news.
Sounded like you had some breaking news. Yes, Chris. Another week, another feature of Google Ads that they are taking away. As time goes on, they're whittling away at everything we do. But August 19th article on Search Engine Land. We're going to link to it in the show notes. Google Ads to remove accelerated ad delivery option next month by October 1st.
Gosh.
That was not a sound effect put in post-production. That was Chris's natural disappointed reaction.
Yeah. I saw this because a warning popped up on one of my feeds and it said, you need to change your feed settings. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's never recommended that. And I looked and I was like, wait, nothing currently active is set for accelerated. And it was one of my old campaigns that had been paused, what it was warning me about. And so then I clicked on the ad or the warning and read through and, just sighed and then said, yes, sir, Mr. Google. And then, continued with my work.
Okay, so they say advertisers typically opt for accelerated delivery when the goal is to drive as many conversions as possible within a target cost per conversion. No kidding. That's why we do it. This is particularly common for e-commerce, blah, blah, blah. And then it says, however, Google says the way that accelerated delivery works can make it an inefficient option. Obviously, if you do not have a capped daily budget, choosing the accelerated option can mean your ad stops serving well before the day ends. For example, if your budget's $100 a day, if the market share is $200 worth of market that you could show up on, and your accelerated delivery as opposed to standard, boom, they're going to spend it as fast as possible. You could spend that 100 in the first few hours and not be able to run the rest of the day. But it says, but Google also notes this method can increase CPCs due to increased competition early in the day. I think that's something both Chris and I have seen. Earlier in the day, there's a lot of advertisers and the cost per click can be higher, or unintentionally spend most of your budget in the earlier time zones. They say standard delivery has now been improved to be more predictive. And that's about it. So there's not really much to say except we are down for the count with accelerated delivery. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about our opinion and editorial in Patreon. How's that sound, Chris?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts to share on that, and we will save that for after the show. Patreon.com/paid search podcast. Join us there. So next week we will be doing our not next week. In a couple weeks, we'll be doing our very popular questions and answers show, and we do answer questions that come in through our website.
Bro, I changed the order. I saw real estate agents and I thought he might murder me if I have him do display 5 weeks in a row and then jump into real estate agents. So I made the editorial decision to move Q&A up. So actually, Chris, good news, it'll be next week. Okay, well, next week. So get your questions in. We will be answering those questions. We try and get through all of them that are in the document that we save. So you can also send in a voicemail in the U.S., 214-810-1355. You can call that number, leave a voicemail, and we will play your voicemail and answer it. So save your fingers some typing. So this week, though, let's talk about this week. This week we have done, I'd say, Jason, an epic journey. I've gotten some comments when I do training, like, you guys have been talking about display a lot. Let's spend this hour talking about display. And I say, okay. And so we go through it. And people are always, interested in exploring it because it's, like you said, it's usually something that people don't try because it's not part of the usual process. You don't think about, I'm going to go to Google to show off of Google, right? I don't go to Google Ads to show somewhere other than Google Ads. I want to show on Google. But it's out there, and it is a significant part of lead generation for many, many advertisers. I know I use it for some of mine. So the question is, you listened through all these episodes. You've been running it for a few weeks now, maybe a month, if you started along with us. How do you judge the results, right? We've talked about how to target audiences and placements and topics and keywords. We talked about, all the different types of ways you can mix and match that. So is it working? That's the question we're going to answer today. What does success look like? What is the metrics that you should be looking for, and what are some red flags? So, Jason, start us off here. Yeah. So I guess, Chris, I think it depends on your goals. So with search, we've obviously heard people get the idea to do it, and some people run search campaigns for brand awareness, but for the most part, search is about getting leads. So everyone mostly has the same goal, but going into display, there's a lot of different things you can do with it. So I think the success depends on your goal. So what were your goals going in? Was it to get direct conversions, leads, straight from those pure display clicks? Was it to get engaged traffic? That's what I call traffic with lower than 90% bounce rates, larger than few seconds time on site, multiple pages, like good analytics data. That's what I call engaged traffic. Or thirdly, was it to get branding and awareness, just to, you think you know who your audience is, you think you know where they are out there on Google, or excuse me, on the display network, and just blasting them with a bunch of like very low cost per click, tons of impression display ads, and building up your awareness and just getting messages out there to them. What were your goals? So that's where I first start with it, Chris. Do you think that's a good way to start judging by success, based on first looking at what the goals were? And then if so, let's kind of break down what success looks like for each one of those goals.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And to say, first of all, if your goal is to get conversions right off from the beginning, the goals for something like that are going to be very tight, I would say. I mean, it's not going to be nearly as much of a conversation of did this work or didn't it work? Because if your goals are conversions, I mean, we're talking about a couple columns in here. We're not going to take
Are you
into
saying
account.
it should be obvious if it worked or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what success looks like for number one, which we'll say is conversions. Sales. It's fairly simple. What does success look like? It means that you have brought in more value than you've spent. It doesn't mean that you've brought in 2,000 clicks, or that you're getting clicks for 3 pennies, or 3 pence, as my friends in the UK have learned this week. So that's not a factor. That could be a factor if you're talking about engaged traffic, bounce time or time on site, bounce rate, things like that. But when it comes to conversions, I think for me, it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, if you've spent $300 and one sale for you represents, $25 of value, you're already underwater.
Even, if one sale is worth $300 of value, say revenue, but then your profit margin is only 50%, then like, what are we talking about here? So
yeah,
conversions, Chris, I'm looking for 2 things. If you're looking for conversions straight from pure display, number one, the CPA, like you're saying, the cost per conversion, how does that compare to your value of what you sell? And then another question I would ask, how does that compare to the CPA I'm getting from search? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it comparable? That would kind of guide the decisions on where the budget should go. If you're doing much better and getting a lower cost per conversion on display, maybe you move some of the budget over from search to display if you don't have budget to add. If it's doing worse, maybe you only give it a little budget. If it's doing the same, maybe you split the budget. Or if it's doing really good and you can, maybe you just add on more budget. The second question, Chris, and I think this is crucial with conversions, because you've taught, I tell you my cool display strategies and you're like, it sounds cool, but in the real world, that's like 7 weeks of work. And even if the business owner is doing it themselves, it's not worth the effort. So the question is, What kind of volume are you getting from this hard, really searching through the forest for a few trees display work that takes a lot of talent, a lot of judgment, a lot of experimenting? What kind of volume are you getting with your conversions? Like, did you get a great conversion this month, but it was a great cost per conversion, but it was only 2 conversions, and your search campaign gets 100 conversions a month? Why are you spending all your time digging through the weeds here, where you should just be spending more money on search, or opening up a new location across town and adding a campaign to a new part of town or something? It's like, you got to ask yourself, is the volume you're getting with conversions from pure display worth the effort that it takes to figure out pure display? I know that one.
And I think, I think, for the next metric that is possibly a success, it gets so mixed up with, the conversion idea. So conversions, you're focused on conversions, and sometimes it's very tempting to mix up engaged traffic or just traffic in general as a measurement of success. You may think, oh, I'm not, I've only gotten 2 conversions, but I've gotten 3,000 clicks, and I've only spent like $300. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I mean, here's what I hear all the time. My analytics has shot way up. They look at these graphs in analytics. I've seen I've seen clients send me, a screenshot. Hey, what happened? My clicks have dropped off to nothing. I'm getting nothing. And I shut off a display campaign
Yeah,
that
I
wasn't
stopped
working.
wasting your money on display.
Yeah,
But my clicks
you're
are down,
welcome.
but my graph is down. Yeah, but we stopped wasting your money on display but my clicks are down, Chris. That's what you
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah. I mean, and so often your graphs and the visuals that are very much now a part of the Google Ads interface, these visuals, are dropping off. You just have giant, hills, boom, gone. And it looks scary, but in reality, that's not the goal of conversions. What could be a goal is engaged traffic. That could be valuable for you if you're getting lots of clicks. Okay, so for something like engaged traffic, you're going to look at analytics. And this, for me,
Google
honestly,
Analytics.
yeah, Google Analytics. Honestly, if I don't have Google Analytics, I don't think this is a measurable.
Yeah, you can't credibly
goal.
say that you're going to go into pure display with the goal of engaged traffic if you don't have Google Analytics measuring what that traffic does.
Or even if you have landing pages, and the landing pages, if you can't say I have engaged traffic and I'm pointing them to a email sign up that is 2 pages of text and no links, doesn't go any further, it's either fill out the form or leave.
That's
call
bad
that engaged
strategy.
traffic.
That's bad strategy.
Yeah.
No,
There's no such thing.
want this pure display traffic to come to your site and read about your about page and read about the history of your business, and maybe they don't watch your videos, get to know you. No, they don't fill out the form that day. They don't call in that day. But you know what? When the next time someone on Facebook goes, hey, I need a roofer, does anyone have recommendations? They remember, oh, I read about this interesting site. Let me just share that with them and tell them, hey, I didn't use this company yet, but they look legit. Check them out. Word of mouth. Maybe they'll use you in a few years. That's what we're talking about with engaged traffic. And Chris, just as a business owner who does this, it works. Like I run display campaigns. I look at trying to get a low bounce rate. I look at trying to get multiple pages per visit. I look at long time on site, and I know that's not leading to direct immediate conversions, but I do feel a pickup in business when I see those stats. It does feel like I'm doing something good, getting my name out there, getting people to learn about me.
Let's give the people what they really want. Let's give them some practical numbers. I'm going to throw out a number here. Jason, I'm sure that you will undercut me and say that your bounce rates from display campaigns are way better, but I'm going to give a real world number. I've learned my lesson about throwing numbers out because you're like, what? That's what you get? Okay, but here we go. I'm going to say bounce rates from display campaigns. I'm usually pretty happy if I'm below 80 and maybe, in the 80 to 70 range. Now that's not for search. If I'm in search and I can get people engaged, and I'm hoping for 60, 50, something like that. That would be great.
Yeah, for sure.
But display campaigns, if I can get 75, I'm liking it. That seems pretty good. Time on site, if I can get a minute, I'm really liking that. If I can get anything over a minute, I'm like, whoa, this is excellent. Engagement as far as number of pages per session, one is anything over 1 is good on average. That doesn't mean everyone's viewing 1 page and leaving. That means the average is more than 1 page, 1.4, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, you get so the key word there, Chris, is the word average. Average bounce rate, average page per visit, average time on site, because what we're really looking for are super engaged users. So what I do is I sort in analytics, and we have an episode on this. Just Google Paid Search Podcast, Google Analytics. You'll see the episode. Or look for it in YouTube. What I do, Chris, is I'm looking for those super engaged users. So if I have an average time on site of 1 minute, 10 seconds, like I think, okay, that's pretty good for display, but just on paper, I'm not super excited about an average of 1:10, 1 minute, 10 seconds. What I am excited about is, say I got 50 clicks that month or 100. I'm excited by double filtering that data and looking at the cities to try to basically replicate individual users. There's probably better ways to do it. I just can't think off the top of my head right now, because if you do LA or New York, there's probably multiple users if you're targeting the whole country, high population. But if you double filter like Google Ads campaign or ad group, and then on top of that cities, what you'll see is that if your average is 1 minute, 10 seconds, and there were 100 clicks, there might be 4 of those users that spent like 25 minutes on your site. And that's what really gets me motivated about engaged users. Like those 4 users, they spent 25 minutes on your site. That's a long time. They know about you now. Maybe you spent $30 that month on display. Maybe you spent 50 or 100, but you're getting something for it. Maybe there were a handful at 5 or 7 minutes, and then most of them were 0. But the average comes out to 110. So that's why we say average 110 is 1 minute is pretty good. Bounce rate, Chris, I agree with you. 80%, that's looking good. What really, Chris, to me, it's not about what looks good. It's about what looks bad. And really anything 90% or over, that just kind of feels very negative. Like really, like over 9 out of 10 people who come to my site, over 90 out of 100 are just purely bouncing. So I'm really trying to keep it under 90. And you're right. If you get under 80, that's a very, very good sign. Some people are going to listen to this, Chris, and they're going to run campaigns, and they're going to see 7% bounce rate from pure display. They're going to see 3% bounce rate from pure display.
Yeah.
What that would mean, go ahead, Chris. What does that mean to an experienced guy like yourself?
Yeah. So if this is a good point, because you can't think that you've somehow cracked the code and you've beat everyone in the display game, and now you're generating amazing traffic that never bounces. The fact is, what you probably have is an issue with your code. Most of the times what I find is there's 2 analytics code on one page. You have a Google Analytics account with code underneath another Google Analytics code with a different account. So I don't know why that happens, but I see that all the time.
Because they work with multiple website companies, multiple Google Ads managers, and people keep adding code to the site.
Yeah.
So Google Tag Assistant in Chrome, Chris, Google Tag Assistant, it's an extension. It'll tell you how many analytics codes are on your site.
Yep. Good point. Yep. So thanks for bringing that up, because that is what's essentially a red flag, which we'll talk about here in a second. That's one of those, hey, something's wrong here. I don't think that's one thing that, there's quite a few more. So let me talk about and introduce my favorite. One thing that I pitch a lot as far as the value of display, and it's a combination of 2 things. What I think is really cool, and I was just telling someone just this week in training, they were like, is this worth it? I was answering the question for them that it was worth it when you combine display plus remarketing, 2 separate campaigns. Jason, imagine driving somewhat qualified traffic for 3 cents. I have one client who's getting traffic for 3 cents to a super long engaging page with a very low bounce rate. 3 cents per click US, and then 1 cent worldwide.
And what are you bidding? Like 10 cents or 5 cents, and it comes in a little under?
No, I think I'm bidding like 20 cents or something like that. Okay. And I've been pulling it down. Yeah. But it's one of those like high funnel, informative type of things. It's a service that they offer, and people are trying to learn how to begin this business thing, and this tool can help them at that level. Okay. So what I love is that we're bringing like 6,000 visitors a month for this person with a very low spend. We're just throwing a little bit of money at it. And
6,000 cents, you're spending like $200 a month, something like that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, nothing, because it's a multi-$1,000 campaign a month. I think it's like 2,000 or 3,000 a month. So, 200 is nothing, like 10% of your spend.
Gotcha. Okay. 2,000 account. And then that one campaign is 200.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes. Gotcha. Yeah. So now imagine what's happening to my remarketing campaign, right? I have a separate remarketing campaign, and now my remarketing list is blowing up. I'm getting thousands every month added to this remarketing list, which costs me very little. I can now serve them ads for the next several months, and they can remember that they've been to this site. This tool is still available. This is something that I like, and this is a brand. Number 3 possible metric, goal that you want to hit is
branding and awareness.
I don't put a lot of stock in the other argument of use display to get your name out there. Because when I think of display, if display were standing in front of me, it would be a bottomless black hole pit of infinity, right? You can throw money into it and you'll never hear the coins hit the bottom of the well. You know, I mean, it's just, you'll never reach but you'll never impact the display impression share that's out there. It just won't happen. So what I like is combining remarketing with display.
So I would, yeah, I see. So just to the flip side of the coin there is sometimes pure display can screw up your remarketing list because you have this nice remarketing list of actual users who have been to your site who found you naturally or organically or through great search ads or whatever. And then you throw in thousands of pure display clicks on there, it can screw up your remarketing list. So one thing you could do is that page you're talking about, that informational page, that could be its own little / whatever page. And then you can set up a custom remarketing list that says, okay, only users that have been to this specific page. And then you can call that your display remarketing list or something. What are you seeing from that remarketing traffic that comes in after they've gotten added because they came in initially from pure display?
Doesn't happen often, but we do get actual click conversions, not view through conversions, but actual click and convert, which is which is not a purchase, but it's a sign up for the client. So yeah, I mean, it happens.
I don't know if this is possible, Chris, but you do pure display, create a remarketing list from that just based on people who viewed the page or whatever, who came in from that traffic. Yeah. I don't know if there's a way to do this, but if there is, it'd probably be great. What if instead of doing that, you said, okay, people who've come to this specific page and who spent 2 minutes on it? I don't know if there's a way to do that, but then the remarketing traffic you would remarket to would be people that actually took some interest or were on the page for 30 seconds as opposed to people bounce. I don't know if there's a way to do that, but I was just thinking.
There is, because what you'd have to do is you'd have to essentially create a goal in analytics to say if someone has been on this page over X time, put them in a conversion goal, and then you would actually create an audience from that goal to say, this is my audience. People that have converted, quote unquote, reached a 2-minute time period on this page, then they can become an audience. It's a creative idea. I like that. Yeah.
What's fun about display, like the flip sides of it is, well, like we said at the top of the show, like, is it worth the effort? If you're going for conversions, what's your volume like? Because there's a lot of effort here. But the reason there's a lot of effort, and the flip side of that is it's fun because you're working with so much volume, usually on pure display, that it just allows for a lot of possibilities. And by the way, that's a great time to tell people analytics metrics, time on site, pages per visit. You can create those as goals in Google Analytics, import them into Google Ads as conversions, and then get conversion data that way. I call those soft conversions as opposed to hard conversions where people fill out a lead form, but that gives you possibilities. So just to wrap up, so Chris, here's the question. That's a good strategy for branding. We've talked about in earlier episodes, using keywords, using topics, audience, all that kind of stuff to get branding out there. What are how do you measure those goals? To me, the only thing I can really think of is just looking at the placements that you show up on and seeing if those placements make sense to the kind of audience you think you're trying to get in front of. I think, but then again, if you're using audience, the placements don't really matter. So I guess it's a tough question. How do you judge results of branding? I mean, is it overall sales of your business and just having a gut feel? It's kind of hard.
Yeah. When it comes to branding, I like the remarketing spin, the fact that I can get, 100,000 impressions and I didn't pay for any of those impressions until, 0.1% of those people clicked on the ad, so, and that's the only ones I paid for, but I still got 100,000 impressions for free. So that's usually what I think is valuable not because I got impressions
per dollar.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're saying deeper. You're saying deeper. You're saying it's not just impressions per dollar. You're saying it's
right. I'm saying it's not necessarily just because I like impressions. It's what I like is the fact that they've been to the page already. They're already familiar with the product. If I liked impressions, I could throw,
Just run
ads
that
on
pure
mobile
display
apps.
forever. Yeah.
Yeah, and just run. That's not what I like. What I like is the fact that these people have already been exposed to my client's website, product, service, and now they're getting remarketing. They
Okay,
see
well,
the
that's a
logo,
reasonable
see the
branding goal.
name.
Like, you're not just looking for impressions, you're trying to do something with that branding. You're
Right.
creating a bigger remarketing list. So
Hmm.
the branding goals are, I mean, it's pretty advertiser specific, and
Yeah.
what your goals are. So Chris, let's talk about red flags.
Before we talk about red flags, let's mention again Opteo, opteo.com/PSP. They send you email alerts. I talk about this all the time. It's a free tool that helps you run your Google Ads campaigns. Managers out there, if you have 6, 7, 70, 100,000 like Jason has, if you have so many clients, there's not even a number for it. You need a tool like this, opteo.com/PSP. You can get a 6-week trial of this tool where they help you be creative with your campaigns because, hey, everybody needs a little help. All right, so let's talk about red flags. This is something I think when I look at a display campaign, these are some of the first things I look at before I even look at success, because I do a lot of audits, I do a lot of training where I look at the accounts and people are looking to me to help them save money, curb some of the waste. And these are, when I see a display campaign, one of the first things I look for is I go to the placements and then I click on where ad showed. That's where a
Right.
lot of this is going to take place, honestly. Because this is essentially the same thing as doing an audit on a search campaign. Instead of looking at the search terms, we look at the placements. We see where this showed. So number one for me, I sort by impressions, or I sort by maybe clicks, one of those two, and I look in the top 10% of the listings, and is there something that's spending a significant amount and has like a 60%, 20%, 50% click-through rate? And I just did this just this week. I copied and pasted. I went to the details, looked at the placement, copied and pasted, and put that into a browser. And you know what it was? It was the weirdest site that took over my whole screen. And it
There were
started
like
doing some
naked people, and they were like, press play, and they were like, Chris, thanks for coming back to our site.
Welcome. Here's
It
your
was the
member. No.
weirdest thing.
Weirdest thing. Welcome back. No,
It took up
it
my
was the
whole
weirdest thing.
screen.
It was such click arbitrage because they were forcing, like, if you wanted to engage with the site, no matter what you did to click, it was going to click on an ad and open up a new window in this.
So they're trying to generate like revenue off of ad clicks inside their own site that they're bringing traffic to from ad clicks.
Right.
Arbitrage,
right.
yeah.
So
Get clicks for 20 cents, get 25 cents from the revenue. Gotcha.
Right. It's
dirty,
click arbitrage.
Dirty. Yeah.
It's dirty stuff. And in the end, not the content. Okay, let's clarify. Not the content of the website. Jason, I don't want to start any rumors. It was not dirty about the content of the website. What's dirty is the click arbitrage. Let's make sure.
I know everyone in no matter what country they listen to, or if English is their first or their 10th language, everyone got that context, and then you freaked out about it, which made you look more guilty than you already look.
I know, that's true. I should just pass by it. I should have didn't even look, but anyway, high click-through rate. If you see high click-through rates, red flag. I know.
Okay, but what's high? People are going to say what's high. So number one, look at a big date range. You got to look at a big date range, 14 days, 30 days, something like that, or longer. People always used to say like 1% click-through rate on search was the threshold of quality, like below 1%, little low quality, higher than 1%, higher quality. That's such a rough metric, and things are so different depending on your position, all that. But what I've always equated that to, and I think I've heard it from people, Chris, is on the display network, the 1% on search equates to 0.1%, a tenth of a percent on display. So but that doesn't mean a 1% click-through rate is bad. And it doesn't mean a 100% click-through rate is bad if there's only one impression. It's all about you have to have a lot of impressions to make this judgment. But if you're getting into the hundreds of impressions and you're on display and your click-through rate, Chris, I'm going to say is double digits, 10% or higher. Is that a red flag?
Sure.
Over hundreds of impressions? Yeah.
I would.
Now, why is that a red flag, Chris?
Well, because most of the time for me, if I go to it, it doesn't have any particular industry or content focused. It's just a crap site. It just has has like ads everywhere. Stuff's flashing on your site. It tries to take over your screen. It pops up and all this weird stuff. That's what I'm talking about. That's what makes it a red flag to me. I don't have any interest in advertising on that. And that's something I want to.
When people click on a pure display ad, Google gets revenue. You're paying Google. But publishers of those non-Google owned websites, regular websites, and all that kind of and apps, they get revenue when people click on the ads. So because they're incentivized to get people to click on the ads, some people take that in a good way and make great content that thousands and millions of people would want to see, and a percent of those people naturally click on the ads that are relevant, and they make money and everyone's happy. But some people try to game the system with way too many ads on the site, blending in the ads to make it look like the website and all that kind of stuff. So you get into the double digits, and even Chris, I don't know, 5%, 6% on click-through rates. I mean, not to say that it has to be bad if those are the click-through rates over a lot of impressions, but I'm at least going to check out the site and see what's going on.
Yeah.
So an unnaturally high click-through rate is something to watch for. Now, mobile apps, Chris, I just put use your own judgment. We've talked about it a lot. You just got to use your judgment. Do you think that app is a place you would want to show up? What percent of your traffic is coming from apps? There's a lot of volume out there with apps. And so
how much spend is happening on mobile apps? If you were to, look through everything that has a mobile app on it, or a mobile app impression and click, how much of that are you spending? If you sort by cost, is most of your screen filled with just mobile app, especially if the mobile app's like a toddler coloring app, I have a 2-year-old and she doesn't make good business decisions. I've asked her what I should do about, my prices in my business, and she just constantly has bad ideas. So I wouldn't recommend. Yeah, she just poops. She's like, I got poo-poo.
So Chris, we sound so defensive right now because the next red flag to look for is weird amounts of clicks and impressions at odd hours of the day. So the reason we're on the defensive here is because you have to have your guard up with display because of the high volume potential. You're not just showing up on keywords you control in a small little metro you control. If you are targeting like a multiple states or a whole state or the United States or a whole country, and you're running different kinds of display strategies, there is a potential for tons of volume. So number one, keep your budget cap under control. That's just like common sense. But secondly, because the volume could potentially be so high, you might turn that sucker on at midnight, or it might come on for the next day, and you might get a bunch of clicks and impressions, and the volume is just so high that it can't control it and even it out through the day because the volume is just so high. So just see if you're wasting all your budget at 2, 3 in the morning when you probably don't want that quality of person. You want people sitting at their desk making business decisions. Is that what you're thinking of, Chris, when you talk about odd hours?
For some reason, it's my sister back when I was a kid, when she got her allowance, at the first of the week, she immediately went and bought a gumball and wasted half of it, So that's the same idea what I see what happens with display campaigns. It's like midnight. Oh, look, my bank account is full. Google immediately starts getting tons of impressions and then starts to even out around 2 a.m. It's like,
right.
Wait a second. I could have used that extra $6, $7, around noon. I would have rather spread that out rather than have a giant lump there. So yeah, that's the idea. And last, I'm going to leave this one to you.
No, I'm going to leave it to you.
I love
talking.
Your note.
You go ahead. I'm just going to say it. 99% bounce rate, 1 second time on site. Those are red flags if that's the kind of analytics data you're getting. And those might be referred to some people in a jokingly way called Facebook metrics. And I'm going to say, what are they? What? Okay, never mind. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. Facebook metrics.
If you're getting Facebook metrics on your display campaign, that's a red flag, because even display campaigns beat Facebook. I love that.
Hey, no, no, no.
That's
It's not. It's not. It's not funny because, like, okay,
it's not
99% bounce rate,
super
1 second time on
blah,
site.
blah, blah.
That's not what you have to fully ask yourself. You need to go back into the account and see if you're getting engagements. Okay, because if you're getting engagements, okay,
Look how many likes, guys. Look how many followers my business has on Instagram. All right. Well, we're going to jump into our Patreon show where
love
we
it.
talk
Join us
about
on Patreon.